The Galactic Compact had governed for millennia. Theirs was a civilization of order, logic, and quiet, cold peace. Then their long-range sensors detected a new species. A species that defied every known biological and social model. They were selfless to the point of absurdity. They rushed into danger to save strangers. They engaged in ritual combat for sport, then helped their opponents to their feet. They called it empathy. The xenobiologists gave it another name. A Class 3 hazardous contagion. The Compact voted to quarantine them, to build a wall around their star and protect the galaxy from their unpredictable influence. But what if the wall was built too late? What if the contamination was already inside their homes, their schools, their hearts? And what happens when you try to ban a species that has already made friends with everyone? The Galactic Council banned humans, but it was too late. Before the quarantine is established, subscribe to the channel for the complete unedited logs, and engage the like button to show your support. Alright, let's begin the story. The Great Chamber of the Galactic Compact hummed with the silent, telepathic discourse of 847 different species. On the central dais, High Chancellor Morwen, an ancient being of pure, placid thought encased in a swirling vortex of psionic energy, presided over a tedious debate on hyperspace lane tariffs. It was the 4712th year of the Great Peace. Everything was orderly, logical, predictable. Then, the session was interrupted. An event so rare it had not occurred in over 1,000 years. Dr. Eris, the Compact's foremost xenobiologist, glided into the center of the chamber, his small, gray-skinned form trembling with an emotion the delegates had long since evolved beyond urgency. High Chancellor, Eris began, his soft, high-pitched lilt amplified throughout the chamber. I must invoke the protocol of imminent discovery. The tariff debate must be suspended. We have an anomaly. A profound silence fell. Morwen's energy vortex pulsed a slow, questioning amber. /proceed, Doctor, /. Holographic displays flickered to life around Eris. Honored delegates, he said, his large, liquid black eyes filled with a terrifying awe. For 3 standard rotations, my teams have been observing species 734, who call themselves humans. Their behavior is a contradiction. It violates every established model of evolutionary psychology and strategic logic. The first image appeared. A vibrant green field where 2 groups of heavily armored humans were engaged in what looked like brutal, chaotic tribal combat over an oblong object. The delegates watched, a familiar sense of weary understanding settling over them. Another violent, primitive race, destined for self-destruction. Observe the ritualized combat, Eris narrated. The levels of aggression are remarkable. A human fell, clutching its leg, its face contorted in pain. Then, the impossible happened. A rival from the opposing group, a hulking figure who had just knocked the other down, immediately stopped. It knelt, helped the injured human to its feet, and patted it on the back before both limped off the field together. The Vorthan delegate, a being of living iron and military doctrine, let out a grating sound of disgust. Their ferocity is admirable, but their lack of a killing blow is a sign of profound weakness. They call it sportsmanship, Dr. Eris explained, his voice laced with disbelief. A logical paradox of simultaneous aggression and post-conflict care. But it gets worse. He switched to the next clip. Grainy security footage from a human asteroid mining station. A catastrophic plasma conduit explosion had sealed a tunnel, trapping a dozen humans deep underground. The atmosphere was rapidly becoming toxic. The logical response was evacuation, containment of the loss. Instead, the footage showed dozens of other humans rushing toward the danger. They clawed at the collapsed, superheated rock with primitive tools and their own bare, soft hands. The atmospheric toxins should have been lethal within minutes, Eris whispered. The humans fashioned crude rebreathers from their vehicle exhaust systems and went in anyway. They worked for 36 hours without rest, ignoring their own burns and injuries, until every last trapped miner was pulled from the wreckage. The final clip was the most disturbing. A small, Pelian freighter had crash-landed on a remote human colony world. The Pelians, a timid, bird-like species known for their extreme xenophobia, were seen cowering in the wreckage, terrified of the giant bipeds approaching. The humans approached not with weapons, but with thermal blankets and containers of warm, nutrient-rich liquid. A small human child, no older than a few cycles, toddled forward and offered one of the frightened Pelian young a toy. A small, stuffed creature. The Pelian delegate in the chamber, a small, feathered creature, let out a soft, emotional chirp, a sound of pure, unadulterated confusion. The humans refused all offers of payment. Eris concluded, his voice trembling. They stated, and I quote, "It was the right thing to do." They demonstrated immediate, protective instincts toward a species they had never encountered. This is not logical. It is not a survival strategy. It is empathy, a hazardous, unpredictable, and dangerously contagious emotional state. He looked around at the silent, disturbed delegates. I have no other classification. I have no other explanation. I have no choice but to classify this species as a Class 3 hazardous empathy contagion. Their ability to form non-logical emotional bonds with any and all sentient life could fundamentally destabilize any society they contact. It is a social virus of kindness. The debate was short and terrified. Empathy is a vulnerability to be exploited. The Vorthan delegate grated. They are weak. We should purify them now. Their illogical behavior is a threat to cosmic order. Chimed the Hexarch, a being of pure mathematics and crystal. It must be contained, studied, perhaps vivisected. The fear of social contamination, of their perfect, ordered societies being disrupted by the beautiful, terrifying chaos of human emotion, was palpable. High Chancellor Morwen, ever the pragmatist, cast the final vote. A quarantine zone will be established around the human home system, Sol. An impenetrable sensor net. No ships in or out. Military enforcement is authorized. We will protect the galaxy from this chaos. We will give them time to let this fever of emotion burn itself out. The compact was satisfied. They had identified a threat and, with cold, logical precision, they had contained it. They had no way of knowing their entire session was being recorded by a microscopic human probe, hidden in a ventilation shaft for over a year. And they had no idea that the contagion was already loose. Chief Observer Yulk of the Nexus Prime Monitoring Station stared at his galactic map in horror. The quarantine around the Sol system had been active for only 60 standard days, a perfect, glittering wall of the most advanced sensors in the galaxy. But the map was on fire. Red warning lights, each one a confirmed, unauthorized human presence outside the quarantine zone, were spreading across the screen like a viral infection. How many? He demanded of his assistant, a nervous trilloid whose skin was shifting to a pale, panicked blue. 342 confirmed sightings in the last rotation, the assistant squeaked. And that's just what we've been able to verify with official assets. Unofficial reports from civilian channels suggest thousands. Sir, they're appearing everywhere. The first official report had been from the Vorthan Empire, the galaxy's most feared military power. A human calling himself a military historian had somehow appeared as a personal advisor to the high-ranking Battlemaster Kresh. The human, a quiet, thoughtful man named David Chun, had introduced the Vorthan to ancient, obscure human strategic texts. Now, Battlemaster Kresh, a warrior who had personally conquered 7 worlds and was scheduled to lead a punitive expedition against a rival clan, was refusing to fight. He was insisting on trying something called negotiation, citing a bizarre human concept of winning a war without fighting a single battle. He had put his entire legion to work on infrastructure projects. The Vorthan warrior academies were in chaos, their cadets now demanding classes on strategic de-escalation and the psychology of conflict resolution. The second report came from the Hexarch home world, a planet of perfect, crystalline cities governed by pure, cold mathematics. Their primary energy grid had been suffering from a subtle, resonant flaw for centuries, a dissonant hum that their greatest logical minds could not isolate, because it was mathematically perfect. Why? E.T. still wrong. Then a human musician named Lena, who had apparently been living in the city's service tunnels for months, identified the frequency. She was a runaway from a human colony who had stowed away on a cargo ship. She didn't just fix the problem. She showed them how to retune the grid's energy flow, turning the dissonant hum into a complex, beautiful, and ever-changing harmony of sound and light. For the first time in their emotionless, 10,000-year history, the Hexarchs discovered art. Their youth began creating sculptures of light instead of solving hyperdimensional equations, claiming they wanted to express themselves. It was a cultural revolution born from a single, beautiful sound. The reports kept coming, a cascade of social impossibilities. A virulent plague on a remote, compact world was contained not by the slow, bureaucratic official fleet, but by a hidden human medical ship, the Nightingale, that arrived first. They didn't have a cure, but they had something the compact doctors had forgotten: adaptive field medicine. They set up quarantines, treated symptoms, and worked with the locals, holding the hands of the dying and comforting the grieving. They saved thousands of lives before the official fleet even arrived. The local governor, facing the extinction of his people, had chosen to trust the humans and was now refusing to turn the criminal doctors over to the authorities. The reclusive hermit worlds, who had not spoken to an outsider in 3,000 years, were now hosting their first interspecies cultural exchange program, a chaotic and joyous festival organized by a human anthropologist who had apparently just showed up with a really good casserole and an interesting board game. Everywhere the humans went, ancient social structures began to crumble, replaced not by chaos, but by friendship, cooperation, laughter, and an endless supply of casseroles. How are they doing this? Yulk muttered to himself, his 6 legs trembling with a mixture of terror and bewildered admiration. How are they getting past our defenses? As if in answer, a new alert flashed on his personal console. A direct, unsecured transmission from inside the sanctuary station itself. With trembling manipulators, Yulk activated the channel. A human face appeared on the screen. A young female with a cheerful, open expression. "Hi there," she said. "My name is Lieutenant Jessica Torres. I've been living in Maintenance Section C7 for the past few weeks. Your coffee machine is terrible, by the way, but I figured out how to fix it. I left the new schematics on your chief engineer's desk." Yulk stared, his compound eyes wide with horror. How? How did you get aboard this station? This is the most secure location in the galaxy." "Oh, that's easy," Jessica replied with a bright smile. "I asked nicely. Your security chief, Commander Grack, is actually a really great guy. Just a little lonely. He misses his spawnlings. Did you know he writes poetry? It's quite good once you get past all the Vorthan military symbolism." Before Yulk could process this, the door to his observation center slid open. Commander Grack himself entered. The normally stern, hulking Vorthan warrior, whose species was genetically programmed for aggression, was carrying a tray. On it were 3 cups of a steaming, dark liquid and a plate of small, brown, circular objects that smelled warm and sweet. "Chief Observer," Grack said, his voice a low, formal rumble, though his posture seemed relaxed. "Lieutenant Torres has prepared fresh coffee and cookies. She says it is a human tradition called friendship. She thought you might like to try some." Yulk looked at his security commander, now serving refreshments. He looked at the cheerful human on the screen, who had apparently hacked the station's most secure network just to complain about the coffee. He looked at the offered tray. In that moment, he realized the profound, catastrophic, and perhaps wonderful truth that the Galactic Compact had failed to understand. This wasn't an invasion. It wasn't a conquest. The humans were simply being themselves. And that was the most irresistible, most dangerous, and most transformative force the galaxy had ever encountered. High Chancellor Morwen's emergency session was one of pure, unadulterated panic. "My people are creating art and demanding individual names .. chimed the Hexarch delegate, his crystal form flashing a panicked, shouty. "See red. My warriors are demanding to talk about their feelings and have started a galactic cooking competition .. boomed the Vorthan general. Our entire military structure is collapsing into a series of potlucks .. At the height of the chaos, the chamber's holographic display flickered to life. It was not activated by the Chancellor. It activated on its own. A human face appeared, projected 100 feet high in the center of the chamber. It was an older woman, her face lined with a gentle wisdom and a hint of mischief. "Captain Eva Rostova." "Hello, everyone," she said, her voice calm and warm. yet carrying an authority that silenced the entire chamber. "We heard you were talking about us. We thought it might be better if we talked with you." The display split into hundreds of smaller windows. Each showed a human face, broadcasting from a different compact world. "Hi, I'm Dr. Rodriguez," said a man standing in a hexarch city of light. "My neighbors here have been teaching me crystalline mathematics. It's fascinating .. We're co-authoring a paper on the geometry of kindness .. "Hey there, Jennifer Walsh here," said a young woman wearing a Vorthan cooking apron. "General Kresh and I are just getting ready for tonight's peace treaty celebration dinner .. He finally perfected his barbecue sauce .. On and on it went. Humans broadcasting from every corner of the galaxy. They weren't soldiers. They were neighbors. They were friends. They were teachers. They were family. High Chancellor Morwen stared at the display, her energy form flickering with dawning, terrible horror. This had not been a random, chaotic spread. It had been a plan. A deliberate, systematic, and perfectly executed infiltration of kindness. "We wanted to understand you before we introduced ourselves formally," Eva Rostova explained from the main screen. The camera pulled back to show her standing in a vast community hall filled with dozens of different species, all working and laughing together. "We learned your cultures, your histories, your hopes, and your fears. And we discovered that despite all your differences, you're not so different from us." The display showed thousands of scenes. Human children playing with young, winged Zephyrians. Human engineers working with stout, rock-like miners. Human doctors sharing knowledge with alien healers. "You voted to ban us," Eva said, her expression softening into something like sympathy. "You tried to build a wall, but you were too late. You can't ban a species that is already living in your neighbor's house. You can't quarantine people who are already teaching your children new games and helping your parents with their daily chores." She smiled, a characteristic human expression that somehow conveyed warmth and friendship across 1,000 light years. "We're not asking you to change your laws. We're not demanding anything. We're just here. We're your neighbors now. And we brought cookies." The transmission ended, leaving the Galactic Compact chamber in a stunned, profound silence. The ban had passed at 1542 Galactic Standard Time. At 1543, it had been rendered completely, utterly irrelevant. The humans were already home. 6 months later, the building that had once housed the great chamber of the Galactic Compact had been completely transformed. The rigid, hierarchical platforms were gone, replaced by comfortable seating arranged in friendly circles. A hand-painted sign near the entrance read, in 47 languages, "Galactic Community Center. All welcome." Former High Chancellor Morwen, who now insisted everyone call her Morty, was setting up folding chairs for the evening's community potluck. Her energy form now displayed cheerful, shifting patterns of green and yellow instead of stern, official amber. "Has anyone seen the coffee machine?" she called out. "Dorothy borrowed it for the children's baking class," replied former Chief Observer Yulk, who was arranging alien flower arrangements. He now wore a hand-knitted sweater with 6 sleeves and the words "Galaxy's Best Organizer" on the front. The formal, cold, and logical government of the Galactic Compact had not been overthrown by war. It had simply dissolved into a chaotic, messy, and joyful galactic neighborhood association. The Vorthan warriors now ran a galaxy-famous chain of barbecue restaurants. Their motto, "Peace through brisket." The Hexarchs had discovered jazz and were now the galaxy's foremost artists in the medium of harmonic light sculpture. The Compact, an empire of 10,000 years, had not been conquered. It had been adopted. And the galaxy, it turned out, had been waiting to be adopted all along. The human plague was not one of death, but of life in all its messy, unpredictable, and beautiful glory. The revolution of kindness had won, one shared meal and one new friendship at a time.